Welcome back, folks. Now, before the break, I was talking about the fact that there really is only two classes of society and how mankind is basically being discarded. There is truly a massive depopulation agenda underway, and it's sort of coming at the people from all directions, and many people are failing to see it there. And that's okay. I mean, you've got your life, and your life will run its course, as will my life run its course. I mean, I won't be here for too much longer. I'm easy over halfway through my life now. But what I'm thinking of is the life that my son will have and the life that his children will have, and so on for further generations, if these generations are able to exist. Because, as I said, there are a great many methods being employed to cull this population. But there are also a great many things we can do to prevent this from happening. And I really do think that one of the most important things we can do, folks, is to eat organic food. You've got to make sure you are eating food that is pure and healthy. Eating in itself, folks, is something that causes more disease, death, and discomfort than any other thing. Eating is the main cause of all of the problems that we have, all our health problems, all the ailments that we get. Most of it is related to eating, because we simply don't eat the right food. You know, we eat lots and lots of processed food, which is simply not good for us. And so we develop all of these problems in later life. And we develop all of these genetic problems and these genetic complications which we hand down to our children. As I mentioned in the film Transformation, or I was showing some newspaper clippings, and as you can find out for yourself, GM foods cause sterility through successive generations of species. Every test they've done on mice or rats, you see that the third generation of mice or rats is unable to breed. And they get smaller and frailer as well. You'll find that each successive generation is a little bit smaller and frailer than the previous generation, until they get to a point where they are unable to breed. And this is from genetically modified food. So you must not eat genetically modified food. I absolutely advise every single person who listens to this show to go and plant a garden. I've been talking to you about this for 4 years now, and I think it's imperative that you do, because genetically modified food is affecting your genes, and it is being passed down through successive generations. Well, this is what all the scientific tests say anyway. And if you're going to eat meat, I mean, I don't recommend that you do, but if you are going to eat meat, then at least try to eat grass-fed meat, and try to maybe catch your own. If you're living in America, maybe catch some deer, or if you're living in Australia, maybe eat some roo or something like that. But don't eat grain-fed cattle and factory-farmed chicken and all of this sort of stuff, folks, because it is affecting you in very, very adverse ways. Very slowly, very subtly, but it is doing so. So I cannot stress the importance of eating the right food. And it's amazing, really. I mean, guys will go to an incredible amount of effort to make sure they put the right oil in their car and all of this sort of stuff. They look after their machinery and make sure it's very, very well looked after. But when it comes to the machinery of their body, they just put anything in there. It's quite remarkable. But you need to look at your body as if it is a vehicle, because really that's what it is. It's the vehicle that your consciousness uses to experience reality. And we just jump in this thing and we just drive it into the ground. And then we wonder why it doesn't function very well. But think about it, folks. Every cell in your body renews itself every 7 years. So why do you age? Why do you get sick? Why do all of these things happen? Well, it's because of what we put into the machine. So you need to be eating clean, healthy, organic food. And the best way to get organic food, folks, is to grow it yourself. There are many, many towns, many communities that have communal gardens. And if you don't have one, then perhaps start having community meetings and find out who's got some land, who's got a block of land where we can put a communal garden, and then all go and participate in it. Because whoever owns the land gets value from it, because they get to eat the food too. And so you all know that the vegetables you are getting are all fresh and organic. And perhaps you could even organize a hunting expedition once every couple of weeks. If you are a meat eater, go and catch some deer, or go and catch some wild game that you know is going to be good. But don't eat prepackaged food, don't eat prepackaged meat. None of that sort of stuff is any good for you, folks. Most meat is grain-fed, which is very bad for you. It's also full of hormones and growth hormones. I mean, you've really got to watch what you're eating, folks. It's one of the most important things you can do. And I believe that eating the right food also frees your mind, because you take on the genetic qualities of the food you eat. Of course you do. Anybody who argues that you don't, I mean, they're just not seeing reality for what it is. Of course you take on the genes of whatever you're eating. There's been suggestion that this is why sheep and cattle have been promoted as the main source of food for humans, because sheep will basically do what they're told and they're very controllable, and cattle are very docile. And so now you have a race of people who eat mainly sheep and cattle, and so you've got a very docile and very controllable race of people because they take on the genetic qualities of the food that they eat. This would be why in some cultures, some African cultures and some tribal cultures, if a hunter would go and kill a lion, he would eat the heart of the lion because he wanted that strength. He wanted those genetic codes in his body. And when you think about this, and you think about how you do take on the genetic qualities of your food, well, it makes perfect sense that you would eat the heart of the lion. And the fact that the natives would do this indicates that the natives knew about this sort of stuff, and indicates that there may actually be something to it, because otherwise why would they do that? And therefore it makes perfect sense that the elite would be feeding the people sheep and cattle, so that they can treat the people like sheep and cattle because they behave like sheep and cattle. I mean, really, it makes perfect sense, folks, when you look at genetics. And this would also explain the incredible drop we're seeing in the male sperm count, and how men are becoming more and more feminine, quite possibly because of the amount of chicken that people consume. Because, I mean, folks, you don't eat roosters, you eat chicken. They're all female. All the chicken that you eat is female. And, of course, it contains vast amounts of estrogen and vast amounts of female hormones and all sorts of stuff. So this is also getting into people's genetic codes. And, folks, I'm not saying that if you eat chicken you become feminine. What I'm saying is it's a genetic thing. You find that through successive generations, the genders are merging closer and closer together. I mean, there really is a lot more going on here than meets the eye in most cases, folks. The human race is quite literally being bombarded from all directions, not the least of which is biologically and genetically. And, folks, this biological and genetic attack has certainly been taken to the next level now with the aerosol spraying that is being carried out around the world by our governments, what some people refer to as chemtrails, what the government refers to as geoengineering or climate remediation. And look, they admit that they do this, folks. If you're out there and you're someone who doesn't believe chemtrails are real, well, they are, folks. I mean, chemtrails, the word has probably been a little bit vilified, but aerosol spraying carried out at high altitude by jets is absolutely real. It is admitted to by governments. The UK House of Commons has released a report on geoengineering that specifically refers to high-altitude aerosol spraying. There are also reports on climate remediation that have been released by government bodies. Bill Gates has even been on and given a talk. I believe it may have even been at TED Talks. It was somewhere where he mentioned that they were conducting geoengineering and said, oh, yes, we have to do this in order to protect us from global warming and climate change. So there's always an excuse, folks, but I assure you it isn't being done to protect us from global warming. It's being done to deliver genetic codes, metallic salts, and nanoparticulates to a very wide area across the planet. That's what the aerosol spraying is all about. And there's a myriad of evidence to support this claim. I actually talked a lot about this in the new film Transformation. If you haven't seen the film, it is available on YouTube now, but I would warn you that though I did attempt to break the news to the people as gently as possible, the film is a little disturbing in some parts, and if you do choose to watch it in its entirety, you are stepping into some pretty deep water once the implications of what I'm suggesting in the film actually sink in a little bit. And folks, with the film, I'm not attempting any fear-mongering, quite the opposite. I'm simply presenting you with what my research has presented me with. And I'm just going where the evidence leads me. And I believe that all the claims that I've made in the film are right there for all to see if you just connect the dots in the right way. So yes, folks, it is stepping into a little bit of deep water, but all is not lost because we still have plenty of opportunity and plenty of ways to fix this problem and to fix the issues that I've addressed in the film. But we need community to do it. We need that communal spirit. We need people to respect each other and to see that there is a bigger agenda here, and we can fix it. We do have the ability to fix it because we are the people. And the most important thing for everybody out there to understand is that the perpetrators of all of these atrocities that are being carried out against humankind are just people too. That's all they are, folks. They are just a group of people, a group of psychopaths who have maneuvered themselves into a position where they now control society. And they are in the process of culling the population, genetically altering that which is left, and taking control of all of the planet's resources. And we certainly do have a big fight on our hands here, folks. It isn't going to be an easy battle, but it's a battle that must be waged. But it can be a peaceful battle because it's really a battle of will. It's a battle of power. It's a battle of consciousness. It's a matter of you knowing who and what you are, and knowing that you are no better or no worse than anybody else on this planet. We are each valid, and we each have the ability to stand up against this system. And by standing up against it, and by preventing the destruction of our water table and all the things that they are doing, we are doing the right thing. We are upholding natural law, because it is our governments that are all operating in breach of trust, that are all operating in breach of natural law. So we don't have to do what these people tell us, because all they're inflicting on us is legislation, which is simply stuff that they wrote down that contravenes natural law. So when we are faced with a situation where the destruction of the water table is taking place, or the pollution of the oceans, or the attacking of whales, or the destruction of the forest, or people being made homeless and discarded, when we are faced with all of these issues, we need to rectify them and know that in doing so, we are upholding law, we are upholding natural law, and that the perpetrators of all of these atrocities are the ones who are breaking actual law. And we need mass but peaceful civil disobedience in the face of all of these issues. I mean, we simply don't have to go along with it. And we need to understand this, because we do have the power to stop it. And if you do stand against the system and the system keeps pushing forward, then you need to knock it back. Knock it back, because whoever is pushing forward, the system itself, the government that is pushing forward with something like a coal seam gas well, you have the right to prevent that well from being put up, folks, because that well is contributing to the destruction of the planet and the destruction of the human race. And so preventing that well from being constructed is actually upholding natural law. And we need to get this perspective. If they're going to push through, folks, and they're going to force you to do something which is in breach of natural law, then you have the right to absolutely defend yourself and to stop the progress of their destruction by any means at your disposal. Because that's called doing the right thing. And I'm not saying that you hurt people, folks. I'm not saying that you get violent and hurt people or anything like that, but you simply don't allow it to go ahead. It's very, very simple. There's all sorts of ways of preventing wells from being put in, and I'm sure that if you're creative, you'll find some way that will slow the process up considerably. As long as it doesn't involve hurting anybody. Because if you hurt somebody, well, that defeats the whole purpose of trying to do the right thing, because hurting someone simply isn't the right thing. Now, these people that are putting up these wells, folks, they've got a television education. They're brainwashed by the amount of paper that they're collecting, and they have this left brain education. They don't realise the damage that they're doing, so try not to hate them. Just realise that they're just closed off, and find another way to operate without hurting them.